Hello, happy Monday, and welcome to this week's live. This week, I am going to be talking about hydration and water. So, if you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Julie with Balance Life with Julie. I'm a regenerative health practitioner and a holistic nutritionist. And basically, I am passionate about educating about all things when it comes to health and well being and how to get your body in its best health possible. And that really comes through the daily choices we make in terms of our nutrition and our hydration, as well as just our environment in general. So today I really wanted to focus on water because water is so foundational for health. And this is something that I think a lot of people take for granted because there isn't a lot of great education out there about this topic. And I found even for myself, when I started researching about water, a lot of the stuff that is shared is actually not correct. So, yeah, I've been researching this now off and on for about 2 years. And I used to think, well, water is just water. Like, what is the big deal? And as I've, you know, dove into the research and really looked at what happens when we put the improper water into our body and what proper water looks like and what are the properties that make water unique and living. That has profoundly changed how I think of water and the type of water that I utilize for myself. So yeah, I've got some images and I want to talk about different kinds of water. So, tap water, hands down, is probably one of the worst types of water that you could be drinking because often, especially with municipal tap water, there's chemicals in there. There can be preservatives, there can be different types of heavy metals. Oftentimes, with municipal tap water, the pipes haven't been updated in a very long time, and pipes do corrode over time. And so there can be a lot of things in municipal tap water that you may not be bargaining for, right? So, like I said, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, a lot of things get flushed into our water system and they don't necessarily get cleaned out properly. And then there are things like fluoride that are added to the water, which is problematic unto itself. So, when I started learning about water and just like how toxic water can be, I did what most people do, which is I went on the internet, I did some research, and I heard like the best kind of water that you could have is RO water, what is known as reverse osmosis. And it wasn't until I really started to learn about living water and how important it is to have living water and structured water within our body and how that has a profoundly different effect on our body as opposed to just, typical tap water or RO water. It wasn't until I started to do that research that I really started to understand how important it is for water to be living and to be structured. So, a process like reverse osmosis, yes, it removes all the contaminants in the water, but it also removes all of the minerals that should be in the water that give it its form and its structure. So, it's basically RO water is completely stripped of absolutely everything. Very similar to distilled water. Distilled water also goes through a process and everything gets removed, all the contaminants get removed, and you end up with something that isn't even really quite water and it doesn't get recognized by the body as water necessarily. And I've had an interesting, I think I'll talk about this at the end when I talk about water and the different types of water that I've tried. So, a couple of years ago, I started learning about water and living water and what it means to have structured water and why that's important. And it really has to do with the fact that as human beings, um, we have like we're not just basically what makes a human is that yes, we have our human cells, but we also have lots of microbial cells. And if you really kind of break down a human being, we're essentially light, frequency, and water, minerals, like that. That's what our component pieces are, is that we're primarily water, and with some, with some minerals, and we're light beings, so we're really, really dependent on the sun and for helping to maintain our health and well-being. And when we start to take those elements away, or we start to really mess with those elements, it can profoundly affect our overall health and well-being. So for example, if we completely disengage from nature and we're always indoors and we never go outside, and we don't take in the energy of the sun, it has a really, really negative impact on our health, because we're not able to activate our vitamin D levels. We are not in fresh elements. We're not in fresh air. So there are all these kind of negative downstream things that happen to us when we disengage from nature. So the issue with having water that is going through a process, whether it's reverse osmosis or whether it's going through a process of distillation, is that it really strips away what makes water water, in terms of the naturally occurring minerals that need to be there, that carry the electrical charge through the water, that carry the elements through the water. So in our body, the role of water is essentially to bring like not only just oxygen, but also nutrients to all of our cells. Water is the carrier that helps to bring nutrition and hydration to our cells. And water is also really, really essential for helping to remove toxicity, to remove waste byproducts, to get all the garbage out of our body as well. So a lot of the health challenges that people struggle with is due to a lack of proper hydration, because a lot of the conventional wisdom out there is that we're about 70% water. But if you look at a human cell, it's mostly water and space, right? Like if you really go between the particles, it's like more space. There's more space than there is actually any matter. And so what ends up happening is that when we're dehydrated, or we're drinking water that actually dehydrates our system, then what ends up happening is that we're not able to our body is not able to carry out those essential functions. So I do have some visuals. I want to talk about different types of water as I share some visuals. So we had a live blood analysis that was done on someone before they had any hydration in their system. So hopefully you can see this. This is what this person looked like, and she wasn't that well hydrated, and there's a lot of stuff in her plasma, which indicates that she's got something going on there. And so, I mean, this is not ideal. And a lot of people are big believers in alkaline water. And I myself am not a proponent of alkaline water, because mostly because what I saw in this person's live blood analysis. So when we gave her alkaline water, her blood got even more bound up. And we want to see our red blood cells. Those are red blood cells you're looking at. We want to see our red blood cells free flowing in the plasma. We don't want to see them all bound up like that. And so that was her body on alkaline water. And then the next type of water that we gave her was bottled water, bottled spring water. And I do think that, so this is what happened to her blood when she was on the spring water. So, her body is starting to clean up. The red blood cells are starting to separate. It's starting to look good overall, which is great. But let me just talk about bottled water for a second. So most bottled water comes in plastic, and there is so much plastic that is finding its way into people and is creating problems. So whether that is hormonal issues, whether it is having, like, plastics can actually accumulate within the cells and tissues of our body. So a lot of people are ingesting these microplastics into their body through, like, maybe they're going and they're getting takeout food, and that takeout food is hot, and the container that the food is in is made up of, like, some type of plastic, and that plastic starts to break down. And not only is that person consuming takeout food, but they're taking some microplastics in with whatever it is that they're putting into their body. Um, so I myself am not a fan of plastic bottles, those single-use plastic bottles at all, because the chances of there being microplastics that get into the water are really, really high. And then that person ends up ingesting those microplastics, and they can settle into different tissues within the body. They don't just stay in the GI system, they go to other parts of the body. So I myself am not a fan of using water that is coming from those plastic bottles. Um, I think spring water is a great option. If you have in the US, particularly, you can go to findaspring.org, I think is the website, and you can find springs near you where you can go and you can get water. However, I do think that because so much of the chemical toxicity that humanity has unleashed on the planet, it all finds its way into the water system. It finds its way into the rivers and the streams and the lakes and the oceans. And so no matter, even if you do have access to spring water, I always think that it is worthwhile to test that spring water and make sure that there aren't any contaminants within that water. That is really, really important. So spring water obviously is, like, definitely good. And then in my professional opinion, from having done live blood analysis a few times on this is the same person's blood on molecular hydrogen water. And so you see that there's actually red blood cells that have completely separated, right? And if we had given her more molecular hydrogen, we would have seen even more separation. And the outside membrane of the cells is nice and lit up as well, which we also want to see. So in my sort of opinion, based on all the research I've done over the course of the last couple of years, the best water to drink is molecular hydrogen, because hydrogen is the smallest molecule. It has the ability to really penetrate into cells and bring in oxygen and nutrients into that cell, and also create that separation between the cells as well. And because hydrogen is such a small molecule, it can also cross into the blood-brain barrier, and it has the ability to displace any contaminants that might be lodged into the brain tissue, which can happen. As I was just speaking about microplastics, do have the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and get lodged in the brain. And so we need to have these tools in our wellness toolkit that allow us to give our body the best support possible. There's basically, like, when I think about health, there's basically two sides of it. One side of it is understanding what the body has been exposed to and how to remove whatever impingements might be on the system. So whether that's microplastics within the body, toxic chemicals, things like glyphosate, parasites, heavy metals. So understanding that those things are within the system and removing those obstacles. And then the other part of that equation is also making sure that the inputs that you're putting into the body in terms of the quality of food, the quality of water, reducing the amount of toxic chemicals that someone is exposed to, as well as addressing EMFs and heavy metals and those types of things. It's just making sure that you're covering off both sides of the equation. And in the work that I've done in the past, like it's going on 8 years now, in 8 years of helping people with their health and vitality, I think that the foundation for everything always begins with the quality of hydration and the quality of nutrition that someone is putting into their body. Because if somebody is putting in, pretty much fast foods and processed foods, and your body has to try to make cells and tissues from that material, and there's not a lot there in terms of quality nutrition, and there's a lot of toxicity and chemical load and processed ingredients and herbicides and pesticides and additives and preservatives. All of those things create a problem for your body. So definitely improving the quality of nutrition is right up there. And then because water is what helps transport oxygen and nutrients to our cells and tissues, having the best quality water available to you is also really, really beneficial. Now, there's something brand new. I probably am going to do a video about this, and probably a couple videos, maybe even a video with some slideshows. But I know that quality water is an issue for a lot of people because they don't necessarily have access to a spring. Maybe they don't have the ability to have a filtration system. So in our household, once I found out that reverse osmosis water is essentially dead water, I actually had the filter in our house replaced to something that's like a high carbon filter. But that high carbon filter, I knew, was leaving in the minerals that are naturally occurring in the water, but getting rid of the contaminants. But the only contaminant it was not getting rid of was fluoride. So we actually ended up getting a countertop Berkey with fluoride filters. That's what we've used for the last year and a half. And I've tested the water from the Berkey. It has good pH. I think the last time I checked, it was about 6.5 pH. And the TDS, total dissolved solid, was, I think, 18. And this is why I was saying that even if you have access to spring water or well water, you would still want to check your water in terms of quality, because sometimes I know of people who have tested their water and their TDS is really, really high, meaning that there's a lot of stuff within that water that shouldn't be there, total dissolved solids. And so it is always, always important to check. Interestingly, I've done 2 extended water only fasts. I did a 14-day one back in 2021, and that was exclusively on distilled water. I was only drinking distilled water during that time. And most recently, I did 10 days, but I did 10 days just drinking molecular hydrogen with frequencies. And it was huge because when I did my 14 days on just distilled water, I struggled. I struggled throughout that 14 days. I had some really, really hard days. I was super low energy. I was not functioning very well whatsoever. And then when I did my 10 days on just molecular hydrogen, and I was running the frequencies into the water the whole time, I just kind of cruised through the 10 days. It wasn't a challenge whatsoever. And I think the difference really was because of the quality of the water that I was putting into my body. Because molecular hydrogen is more hydrating at the cell level, I was actually giving my body more support. And then the thing was, the water that I'm putting into the bottle is filtered, meaning that there are still minerals within that water that help support the body. Whereas when I was drinking the distilled water, there were no minerals whatsoever in that water. And so if somebody drinks a lot of RO water or someone drinks a lot of distilled water over the course of time, especially if they are not putting in, if they have a diet that doesn't have like proper minerals in it, over time you can develop deficiencies in certain nutrients because of the type of water that you're drinking. But anyway, when I did the molecular hydrogen water, it was like easy peasy. I went through 10 days. And ironically, I'm recording this live on a Monday, and I've decided that I'm going to be having one day a week where I'm fasting, and I'm just doing either dry fasting or molecular hydrogen. And so this happens to be the one day that I'm doing that, which is I start on Sunday evening and I go till Tuesday morning. So it ends up being about a 40-hour fast roughly. And it's just to give my digestive system a break, just to kind of like help my body to reset, get a little bit of internal cleanup happening, and allow my body to just have this internal rest. Most people, I feel, just from understanding what I understand about the food system and the lack of nutrition that is in, or the lack of nutrients rather, that most people are they're putting all this, they're over consuming calories. And so they're putting in a lot of calories into their body, but not a lot of nutrients are going into their body. And most of the food that they're eating is very, very hard for the body to digest and break down and assimilate. And so it actually puts a lot of stress on the body. It puts a lot of stress on the system overall. And I find that just doing things like resets and fasts and things like that, it is such a powerful way to let the body just rest and do what it needs to do, because our body is powerful. It's capable of healing itself. Most of the time we just get in the way. So anyway, Mondays are my fasting days, and it's actually kind of a relief to not have to think about food whatsoever and just be focused on whatever it is that I want to be doing over the course of the day. So in terms of addressing water quality, there is something new that just launched called Aqua Vibrance. It is through the superfoods company that I work with. And it is just using a few drops. You can put those drops into any type of water that you're drinking, and it helps to oxygenate the water. It helps to structure the water, and it helps with the ORP, oxidative reduction potential of the water as well. So it's actually really, really cool. I'm going to be testing. I'm going to be testing our water that we have that's filtered to see if anything gets removed using these drops. I'm going to test my water that comes out of my Berkey. And then we have a lot of snow outside here right now. So I'm actually going to take some of that snow, which will melt, and I'm going to put some of the drops in that as well, because not only does it help oxygenate and structure the water, but it helps to remove contaminants from the water. So if you are someone who, you don't have the ability to put in a filtration system into your house, or maybe you're renting and you don't want to do that, then you can just use these drops instead. And my plan with using the drops is because, of course, I want to make sure that my water is as hydrating and as structured as possible. For all the water that I use for, say, making my superfood shakes or for cooking or things like that, I'm going to use the drops for that type of water. And then I'm going to be using just the Berkey water to make my molecular hydrogen water. So I'm going to be having access to two different types of water. And the drops are also going to be really, really amazing for, like, let's say I'm going somewhere and I'm traveling, because as soon as I start traveling somewhere, the number one problem right away is always the quality of water, quality of food, and the quality of water. And so this will be a great way to make sure that I always have access, and I have the ability that I can pour water into a glass from any tap, just put in a couple of drops of the Aqua Vibrance, and it's going to help clean up the quality of the water. And I'm going to be able to safely drink clean water no matter where I go. So yeah, I'll probably be doing some more videos on that as well. And so I want to do just a teeny little Monday mindset shift, just to talk about mindset and how important it is. I know that I've spoken about gratitude before on my channel. I'm not sure how well received it's been, or if people do the exercises, but this is something that I keep coming back to over and over and over and over again. And especially this time of year, like we've had a long winter. We've had a lot of snow this winter. And as I speak to different people, I think it is wearing on most people in terms of the length of the winter, the cold, the snow, all the things. And this is where it's really, really important to work on perspective shifting and where your own mindset is when it comes to certain things. So, for example, for myself, like when I go out into the snow, when I go out into the winter wonderland, I like, first of all, I make myself, even on the coldest days, I make myself go out there and just move my body, go for a walk, take in the fresh air, be in the elements. And then the second thing is I do find things to appreciate about the colder months, about the snow, about the winter. And in many, many traditions, winter time is actually the perfect time for introspection, to look inwards, to observe where you are, and to look at making some internal shifts. And so I've chosen to take this time in the winter to get more quiet, do more meditation, do more gratitude practice, and to really plant those seeds that are going to come into fruition once we get more into spring and summer. So if you do not have a gratitude practice, this is one of the easiest, simplest, most powerful things that you can start doing for yourself, is just make sure that you have a journal. It can be like, I've got like this little journal on my desk. You can just grab a little journal and get into the habit right before you go to bed to just write down 2 or 3 things that happened over the course of the day that you're really grateful for, whether it's getting outside for a walk, a conversation that you had, some connection that you made. But find the small things in your life that you can actually really celebrate. And as you're falling asleep, think about those things that you wrote down and allow yourself to actually come into the feeling experience of what it felt like to have a good connection with someone, what it felt like to, laugh about something, or whatever it is that happened over the course of your day. And let your mind kind of ponder that as you go to sleep. Because if you can get in the habit of recalibrating your mind and bringing it into a place of gratitude and appreciation, the way that this energy universe works, because it's all about energy and frequency, is the more that you can emit good energy and frequency into the world, the more will start to come back to you. It's like a boomerang. So it's like whatever you put out is what you're going to get back tenfold. And this is why the most important thing that any of us can really do is to master our mindset and master our attitude about how we see life and how we appreciate life and how we show up. Because, and just do it as a 30-day thought experiment. Do it for 30 days and start to notice, like, does anything shift for you as you do this? As you do a daily gratitude practice right before you go to bed, what changes? Like, do you wake up in the morning in a better mood with better vitality and energy? Do other things start to happen over the course of your day that help you to feel even better emotionally and mentally? And so chart those little wins. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you on the mindset side. If I figure out how to do that experiment for Aqua Vibrance and am able to do it live next week, I will bring it to my live for next week. Otherwise, I will probably end up recording another video about water and hydration. I feel like there's so much to say about water that there's never really, one video is never really enough to cover it all. So I'm probably going to be talking about water quite a bit in the next little bit and sharing some of my insights, some of my experiments, and what I have found. And hopefully you find some value from it. If you have any specific questions about hydration, please for sure pop them into the chat. I'd love to answer your questions. If you have burning questions when it comes to like mindset and how to start to shift your mindset, make sure that you pop those into the chat as well. Like I know that a lot of my page is really focused on health, but it's all a part and parcel of everything. Like everything is connected. So our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual selves, it's all kind of a part of everything. So make sure that if you have questions, you put them into the chat. Check the links below this video because there's, some really great resources. I also work and am partnered with some pretty amazing companies that offer really amazing solutions when it comes to health and well-being. And if you want guidance and support on your own health journey, make sure that you check out my program, Elevate. Elevate is an amazing way that you can get your health back on track. And it's all for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day. So thanks so much for being here, for being a part of my online community. If you think anyone could benefit from watching this video, please share it with them. Bye for now, and I'll see you in next week's live.